The wind howled to the metal bones of the abandoned spaceport, carrying with it the smell of rain and the faint hum of far-off engines. Captain Elias stood at the edge of the docking bay, eyes fixed on the black horizon where the storm clouds met the cracked sky. Years had passed since that day, since she had said those words to him, small hands clutching the hem of his jacket, eyes too bright for a world so cruel. Wait for me. He had waited, though the galaxy had moved on without her. The day she vanished was burned into his memory. She had been no more than 8, a small alien girl with pale silver hair that shimmered under the twin suns, and a voice that carried more courage than most soldiers he knew. They had met during the evacuation of Varela Station, when pirate raiders had torn to the colony like wildfire. He had found her hiding behind a broken cargo crate, trembling but refusing to cry. "I'll find you again," she had promised, standing in the chaos with her chin lifted high. Then she had been pulled away in the crowd, swallowed by the tide of fleeing civilians. That was the last time he saw her, until now. Elias's hands tightened on the rusted railing as the approaching ship's silhouette emerged from the storm. It was sleek and unfamiliar, its hull gleaming white despite the heavy rain. Something about it tugged at his memory. He leaned forward, heart pounding. The ship slowed, landing gear extending with hiss, and the air filled with the sharp scent of ozone. The ramp lowered with deliberate slowness, each clang echoing in the hollow spaceport like a heartbeat. For a long moment, there was only mist. Then a figure appeared, tall, poised, and wearing a flowing white uniform that seemed to drink in the dim light. Her hair, still the same pale silver, tumbled past her shoulders, though now it was braided within golden threads. Her eyes, a deep violet he remembered from that day, locked on him. She stepped down the ramp without hesitation, her boots striking the wet floor with steady rhythm. "You waited," she said, her voice stronger now, but with that same undercurrent of warmth. Elias felt his throat tighten. She was no longer the small child he had saved, no longer the girl who had been lost in the chaos. She was a woman now, a presence that seemed to command the air around her, and she had come back. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words tangled in his chest. She smiled faintly, though it did not reach her eyes. "There's no time," she said. "I need your help, and I can't explain everything here. They're watching." Her gaze flicked toward the storm beyond the hangar doors, where flashes of red light danced through the mist, signs of ships waiting, perhaps hunting. "Come with me, Captain, please." Elias hesitated only a moment before stepping forward. "Who's after you?" he asked, though deep down he knew the answer was going to change everything. Her smile faded completely. "The ones who took me," she said softly, "and the ones I now serve." Elias's mind raced as he followed her through the damp, echoing corridors of the abandoned spaceport. Rainwater dripped from the ceiling in slow, steady drops, splashing against the metal floor. She walked ahead of him with measured steps, her white uniform almost glowing in the dim light. He could see the way her shoulders stayed tense, the way her eyes flicked toward every shadow, every sound. Whoever was after her wasn't far. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but each time he opened his mouth, she raised a hand as if to silence him. Finally, when they reached the far side of the docking bay, she stopped beside a sealed maintenance hatch. With a press of her gloved palm against the panel, the hatch slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel lit only by faint blue strips along the walls. "In here," she said, her voice low. "We can talk without them hearing." Elias stepped inside, feeling the cool air of the tunnel wash over him. As the hatch closed behind them, the sound of the storm outside faded to a distant hum. The tunnel seemed endless, stretching ahead like a hollow artery deep into bones of the spaceport. They walked in silence until she stopped and turned to face him. "I told you I'd come back," she said. "But when they took me, I wasn't taken to safety. I was taken to them, the Syndicate." Elias's jaw tightened. He had heard the name before, whispers of a shadow network that moved through every star system, controlling trade, politics, and even governments. No one knew who truly led them. No one dared to challenge them. "They trained me," she continued, "not just to survive, but to serve. They turned me into one of their white envoys, faces they send when they want someone to trust them. The uniform isn't a symbol of peace. Elias. It's a warning. Her words settled heavy in the air. Elias studied her face, trying to find the girl he remembered. She was still there, in the way her eyes softened when she looked at him, but now there was steel behind them. He wondered how many years she had lived under the Syndicate's grip, what they had done to her to turn her into this. "They want me to deliver something," she said. "A data core. I was supposed to bring it here, to this spaceport, and hand it to their agents. But I couldn't do it. The core holds plans for something worse than anything the galaxy has seen. A war machine, something that could wipe out entire systems in minutes." Elias's stomach churned. "Why tell me this? If they find out—" "They already know I've gone off script," she interrupted. "That's why they're here. And that's why I came to you. You're the only one I trust. The only one who ever treated me like I mattered, even when I was just a scared kid hiding behind crates." He didn't answer right away. The storm outside might have been distant, but the tension in the air here felt heavier. "Where's the core now?" he asked. She hesitated, then reached into the folds of her uniform. From an inner pocket, she pulled a small silver sphere no larger than a fist. It glowed faintly with a deep blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Elias instinctively stepped back, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing what that object could mean. "This is why I can't go back to them," she said. "If I give it to them, billions will die. If I destroy it, they'll hunt me across the galaxy. And if I keep it, they'll use every resource they have to take it." Before Elias could respond, the tunnel lights flickered. A faint vibration ran through the floor, growing stronger with each passing second. She shoved the core back into her pocket and grabbed his arm. "They've found us," she whispered. The lights died completely, plunging them into darkness. Then, from far down the tunnel, came the sound of boots on metal. The rhythm was steady, too steady to be ordinary soldiers. Syndicate hunters. Elias had heard of them. Trained trackers who never stopped until their target was dead or captured. "This way," she said, pulling him into a side passage barely wide enough for one person. The walls pressed close, the air stale and cold. The sound of the hunters' boots echoed behind them, closer now. Elias could almost hear the faint mechanical hiss of their breathing apparatus. The passage opened into a small chamber filled with old supply crates. She knelt beside one and pried it open, revealing a stash of old weapons. She tossed Elias a compact plasma rifle and took one for herself, checking the charge with practiced ease. "You still remember how to fight?" she asked. "Better than they'll expect," he replied. The first hunter appeared in the passage, tall, armored in black with a mask that had every feature. The red glow of its visor cut through the dark like a blade. Without a word, it raised its weapon. Elias fired first, the rifle's blue bolt slamming into Hunter's chest and sending it crashing to the floor. But the sound brought the others running. They fought side by side, moving through the chamber as more hunters poured in. Each shot lit the darkness for a fraction of a second, revealing faces twisted in determination, or in the hunter's case, hidden completely by the cold steel of their masks. Elias noticed that she didn't hesitate. Every move she made was precise, efficient, and deadly. This wasn't the scared little girl he'd once known. This was someone who had survived years in the Syndicate's shadow. When the last hunter fell, the chamber was filled with the smell of scorched metal and the ringing echo of silence. She leaned against a crate, breathing hard. Elias lowered his rifle, glancing at the tunnel entrance. It wouldn't be long before more came. "They'll send reinforcements," he said. She nodded. "Then we don't stay here. There's a ship hidden outside the old East Hangar. It's mine, or at least I stole it. If we can get to it, we have a chance to get off this rock." Elias didn't need convincing. As they slipped back into the narrow passages, he found himself wondering how much more she wasn't telling him. She had come back, yes, but not just to keep a promise. There was more at stake here. The way she guarded that data core, the way her eyes seemed to harden every time she mentioned the Syndicate. It all told him this was only the beginning, and he had the sinking feeling that whatever she was running from was already chasing them through more than just this storm. They moved like shadows through the old service tunnels, guided by the soft blue strips on the walls and the map she kept in her head. Water dripped from broken pipes. The air tasted like rust. Elias stayed a step behind her, watching the way she checked corners and listened to the floor before taking each turn. He could tell she had done this many times in many places. She was careful, but not afraid. That told him she knew what waited outside the east hangar, and she was walking toward it anyway. They reached a ladder that climbed through a narrow shaft. She went first, slinging her rifle across her back. Elias followed, counting the rungs to keep his mind steady. 30 rungs up, the shaft opened into a graded catwalk above a wide maintenance court. The east hangar was on the other side, a tall mouth of darkness and wind. But between them and that mouth, the court lay open and exposed. Pools of rainwater mirrored the ceiling lights, and every reflection seemed like an eye. "We cross at an angle," she whispered, "never in a straight line. Hunters aim by prediction. Angles break that." "Good to know," Elias said, and took a breath that felt too loud. "What do I call you now? I never knew your name." She looked back at him. The white uniform made her seem like a beam of light in the dim space. "My name is Lyra," she said. "The syndicate called me White Envoy 12, but I am keeping Lyra." "Lyra it is," he said. The name felt right, like a piece that had been missing. "On your lead." They moved. Their boots touched metal with careful, soft steps. They zigzagged between fallen crates and broken carts, crossing the court in a pattern that would look random to anyone watching. Elias held his rifle low and steady, eyes scanning the rails, the roof beams, the shadowed stacks that lined the edges. Lyra pointed to a stretch of wall near the hangar doors, where the panels were newer than the rest. Someone had repaired them, and the work was too clean. "Trap," she breathed. "Sensor grid behind those plates, linked to silent alarms. If we pass there, we will not hear the alert, but hunters will." Elias nodded. He pointed to a different danger. In the rain puddles, some ripples traveled against the wind. That meant water shaken by weight. That meant someone was crouched above them on a beam, breathing slow, held in place by a harness. "I count 3 above," he said. "Maybe 4. Thermal camouflage, but their weight disturbs the struts." Lyra's mouth curved in a small, grim smile. "You still notice the small things." "They keep you alive," he said, and angled to a patch of shadow that would let them slip under the beam instead of crossing open floor. Lyra adjusted without a word. They moved beneath the beam and stopped. Above them, a faint breath hitched. A cable creaked. Elias did not look up. Hunters knew the sound of eyes as much as the sound of boots. A voice clicked inside the court speakers. It was smooth and kind, the sort of voice used in hospitals and public service announcements. "White Envoy 12, it said. "Please stop. You are valued. Your contract can be renewed with improved terms. The data core is not your burden to bear." Lyra did not look at the ceiling. "They are not here to talk," she said. "They are stalling while ground teams circle." Elias touched her arm. "Then we move now," he said, "but not for the big doors. Too obvious. Is there a side access to the hangar's mezzanine?" She nodded once and pointed to a narrow seam in the wall, where a maintenance door had been welded shut at some point. Behind that seam is a service corridor that leads to the mezzanine above the landing pad. My ship is underneath, docked on a lift cradle. Elias shrugged off his pack and drew a flat wedge cutter. It hummed quietly when he pressed the switch. He slid the blade along the seam, melting old welds like wax. Lyra watched the reflected beams above them and counted heartbeats under her breath. When he finished, he braced his shoulder against the door and pushed. Metal groaned. The panel gave way by a few inches. Just enough. They slipped through and eased it back into place. The service corridor was narrow and smelled like old oil. The lights were dead, but faint daylight leaked in from cracks near the roof. They moved fast now, jogging in silence, feeling the building shift under the wind. Elias kept thinking of the gentle voice in the court. The syndicate never shouted. They did not need to. They spoke like friends. Then they took everything. At the end of the corridor, a graded stair climbed to the mezzanine. They took it 2 steps at a time and came out onto a long balcony that overlooked the hangar floor. The wind rushed into the half-open hangar doors, bringing rain mist with it. Below, on the pad, stood Lyra's stolen ship. It was small and sleek, shaped like a thrown knife, painted a dull gray except for a white stripe that ran along its side. The stripe matched her uniform. A mark or a joke? Elias could not tell. Between them and the ship, Syndicate ground teams had set a ring. 6 hunters in black armor. 2 engineers with drone cases. A woman in a dark coat, standing very still with her hands behind her back. Her face was uncovered. She watched the ship the way a chess player watches the center squares. Elias knew an officer when he saw one. Lyra's breath hitched for a moment. She pointed at the officer. "That is Director Mara," she said, voice barely audible. "She was the one who selected me for White. She taught me how to smile while lying. She gave me books so I could speak like a diplomat. Then she gave me orders that made my hands shake. Does she know you would come here?" Elias asked. "She knows me," Lyra said. "So yes." Elias studied the layout. 2 hunters near the ship's ramp. 2 on the far corner by the lift controls. 2 watching the doors. The drones were not airborne yet. The engineers were setting up guidance beacons. The officer waited for a mistake. "We cannot blast through," he said. "Not before drones launch. We need confusion. Something to make them look away for 10 seconds. Lyra slipped the silver sphere from her inner pocket. The data core's blue heart pulsed. She thumbed a small ridge near its base. A second, smaller light appeared, this one green. "The core holds many things," she said. "Schematics, keys. It also holds noise. I can trigger a directed signal that scrambles drone guidance for a short time. It will make their sensors bloom like torn fabric." "How long?" Elias asked. 8 seconds, she said. "Maybe 9 if I push it." 8 is enough, he said. He pointed to a utility crane that hung from the mezzanine rail. "I dropped that crane hook onto the floor. It will crash and spark. Your signal fires at the same time. Drones fail. Eyes shift. We jump down the service ladder at the corner and sprint to the ramp." Lyra looked at his face, measuring. "You will be exposed on the ladder." "So will you," he said. "But the angle is good. Their prediction will miss." Between them and the ship, Syndicate ground teams had set a ring. 6 hunters in black armor. 2 engineers with drone cases. A woman in a dark coat, standing very still with her hands behind her back. Her face was uncovered. She watched the ship the way a chess player watches the center squares. Elias knew an officer when he saw one. Lyra's breath hitched for a moment. She pointed at the officer. "That is Director Mara," she said, voice barely audible. "She was the one who selected me for White. She taught me how to smile while lying. She gave me books so I could speak like a diplomat. Then she gave me orders that made my hands shake. Does she know you would come here?" Elias asked. "She knows me," Lyra said. "So yes." Elias studied the layout. 2 hunters near the ship's ramp. 2 on the far corner by the lift controls. 2 watching the doors. The drones were not airborne yet. The engineers were setting up guidance beacons. The officer waited for a mistake. "We cannot blast through," he said. "Not before drones launch. We need confusion. Something to make them look away for 10 seconds. Lyra slipped the silver sphere from her inner pocket. The data core's blue heart pulsed. She thumbed a small ridge near its base. A second, smaller light appeared, this one green. "The core holds many things," she said. "Schematics, keys. It also holds noise. I can trigger a directed signal that scrambles drone guidance for a short time. It will make their sensors bloom like torn fabric." "How long?" Elias asked. 8 seconds, she said. "Maybe 9 if I push it." 8 is enough, he said. He pointed to a utility crane that hung from the mezzanine rail. "I dropped that crane hook onto the floor. It will crash and spark. Your signal fires at the same time. Drones fail. Eyes shift. We jump down the service ladder at the corner and sprint to the ramp." Lyra looked at his face, measuring. "You will be exposed on the ladder." "So will you," he said. "But the angle is good. Their prediction will miss." She nodded. "On your mark." Elias moved the crane controls. The panel was dead, but the manual release still worked. He set the brake and coiled the slack so the hook would swing out and then down. He made sure it would hit the floor beside the nearest beacon, not on top of it. He wanted sparks and noise, not a blast that would throw metal at them. He flexed his hands, took a breath, and looked at Lyra. She held the core like a fragile heart. Now, he said. He kicked the brake. The hook screamed along the rail, and then dropped. It hit the floor with a heavy crash that echoed like thunder. Sparks jumped in a bright fan. In that flash, Lyra pressed the ridge on the core. Somewhere below, the engineer's displays burst into snow. The drone status lights flickered. 4 heartbeats. The ring broke. Heads turned. Hands moved the panels. Voices rose in clean, controlled tones that meant things were going wrong. Elias and Lyra ran. The service ladder was cold and wet under their hands. They slid more than climbed, landing hard and pushing off into a sprint. The distance from ladder to ramp felt like a field in a storm. Lyra ran with light steps, one hand tight on the core, the other on her rifle. Elias ran like a man who had decided already that this was worth it. They were 5 strides from the ramp when Director Mara raised her hand. She did not shout. She simply spoke one word that the suit mics carried to every hunter. The ring shifted and closed. 2 hunters fired low to herd them left. Elias did not turn left. He dove forward, took the shots on his shoulder plate, and rolled. Lyra went over him like a dancer, flipped her rifle, and sent a bright bolt into the lift control stack. The stack exploded in a shower of harmless light and smoke. The ring paused for one more breath. It was enough. They hit the ramp and ran inside. Lyra slapped the console. The ship recognized her palm and woke. Lights chased each other across the ceiling. Engines coughed and then steadied. Elias jumped to the co-pilot's chair and started the bypass routine that would cut the external clamps. Behind them, hunters reached the ramp and fired. Shots hit the hull in a tight pattern. The white stripe burned black marks, but the metal held. "Clamps are fighting me," Elias said. They set a lock code. Lyra set the core into a cradle near the pilot's seat. "Borrowing the core's power," she said, and linked it to the ship's grid. The lights burned brighter. The engines deepened to a hungry growl. "We are not going to ask the clamps," she added. "We are going to tear them." The ship shuddered. Metal screeched. Outside, Director Marr watched with the still interest of a chess player watching a bold move. She lifted one hand, and the remaining drones rose on manual control, their guidance still ragged from Lyra's signal. They drifted like angry insects around the ship's nose. "Brace," Lyra said. The ship surged. The clamps bent, then snapped. The lift cradle tried to hold and failed. The nose dipped, then rose. The ramp closed with a hard slam. The ship leapt forward through its own smoke, skimmed the hangar floor, and shot toward the half-open doors. Drones chased, firing in thin, sharp lines that streaked the mist. Lyra rolled the ship and slid through the gap with a scream of air and metal. They burst into the storm, into rain so heavy it felt like stone. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of the engines and the drum of rain on the hull. Then the Syndicate's voice returned on a wide channel. "White Envoy 12, it said, still gentle. Return to the hangar. You are valuable. Your contract can be renewed. Your friend will be protected." Lyra did not answer. Her hands moved on the controls with calm precision. She pushed the ship into the cloud layer and cut power for half a second to bleed heat. Elias watched the sensors. 2 fast contacts rose from the east. Interceptors. They spread like wings and closed. "They will try to herd us to clean air where their targeting is better," Elias said. "So we go where they do not like," Lyra said, and dropped the ship low, skimming the broken plains around the spaceport. Lightning danced on the horizon. The rain softened and then thickened. The interceptors followed, steady and patient. Elias opened the lower bay camera. On the screen, he saw the hangar roof, now far behind, and the figure of Director Mara standing in the open doors without a hood, rain soaking her dark hair. She did not look angry. She looked interested. She lifted a hand as if to greet an old friend. "She will not stop," Lyra said quietly. "She does not know how. She will keep sending teams. Cities, stations, Holmes. She will take what I care about and use it to pull me back. Then we take away her board. Elias said, we make this not a chase, but a question she cannot answer. Lyra glanced at him. What question? Why you were chosen, he said. Why white? Why this core? Why now? There's a reason beside your skills. Something simple and ugly, or something old and secret. If we find it, we can pull the thread. Lyra flew in silence for a few breaths. The interceptor shifted into a pincer. She rolled left and dropped into a canyon cut by old rivers. The walls rose on both sides like black teeth. The interceptors hesitated for half a heartbeat before following, and that half heartbeat told Elias they were not as comfortable here as they wanted to be. I was chosen because I can read rooms, Lyra said at last. Because I can listen and see what is missing. But there is more. On my first day, Director Mara said the syndicate had been watching me since Varela Station. She said my file started before I met you. That makes no sense. I was no one before that day. A child with no rank and no record. Unless someone gave you value. Elias said, a promise can do that. The promise you made to me. Or one I made to you. Lyra's hands tightened on the controls. You promised to wait, she said. Maybe the syndicate measured that. Maybe they wanted to use it. The canyon bent. The interceptors came in close, firing in short bursts to spook them into a rock wall. Lyra tapped the core's cradle. We can feed a small pulse into the ship's emitter, she said. Not a weapon. A mirror. We can throw our heat signature to the side for 1 second. Enough to make them aim at air. Do it, Elias said. Lyra pressed the cradle switch. The ship shivered and flashed cold on the sensors. The interceptors fired at the ghost. Lyra cut left in a tight knife turn. One interceptor clipped the canyon wall and spun away, trailing smoke. The other pulled up hard and overshot. The sky opened ahead, a slice of light between heavy clouds. Lyra took it and climbed. They broke out above the storm, into clear air and a pale sun. The spaceport shrank behind them. The horizon spread wide and bright. The second interceptor gave up the chase and turned back, its fuel calculus done by a machine that did not care about pride. Lyra let out a slow breath. Elias did too. For a moment, there was quiet, the kind you only get after a storm. Then a soft chime sounded from the data core. The blue heart pulsed faster. Lines of light traced across its surface in patterns that were not random. Lyra frowned and leaned closer. What is it? Elias asked. The core is waking something tied to proximity, she said. A key inside a key. It only opens when we cross a certain latitude. It is not a war machine alone. It is also a map. A map to what? Elias asked. Lyra looked at the window, at the pale sun and the thin, bright line of the horizon. When she spoke, her voice was steady. A place the syndicate wants to reach. A place they cannot enter without me. And if they cannot enter without me, it means someone inside that place is waiting for me too. An ally? Elias asked. Or a judge, she said. Either way, we are going. She set a new course, one that followed the pattern on the core like a song. Behind them, the storm closed and hid their trail. Ahead, the sky opened into a path that felt chosen long ago, when a little girl with silver hair stood on a burning station and said words that tied two lives together. Elias checked the engines and nodded to himself. They were moving from escape to purpose, from running to seeking. And he knew one more thing as the sun climbed and the ship's nose angled to the unknown. Director Mara would not be far behind. You said, the ship cut across the upper atmosphere like a silver blade, its engines humming low as Lyra kept them just below the syndicate's long-range scan threshold. The pale sun stretched their shadows across the clouds, and Elias watched the horizon shift with every course correction she made. He could see it in her face, the way her eyes tracked invisible markers in the sky, that they were following something precise, something she knew better than she wanted to admit. The data core sat in its cradle, pulsing with a slow, steady blue. Lines of light traced across its surface in shifting shapes, almost like constellations. Every few minutes, a shape would fade, replaced by a new one, each aligning with their path. Elias leaned forward, studying the changing patterns. "It's guiding us," he said. "Not to coordinates exactly, but to a moving point." Lyra nodded, her hand steady on the controls. "It's a ship, or a station, or something that doesn't stay still. The Syndicate can't track it directly. That's why they need me in this core." "And what's waiting for you there?" Elias asked. Her jaw tightened. "Someone who knows why they chose me all those years ago. Someone who has been waiting for me as long as you have." Elias studied her profile. The girl he remembered was still in there, but now there was a quiet sharpness about her, like a blade kept hidden until needed. He wondered if she was more afraid of finding that someone or of what they might tell her. A faint chirp broke the moment. The ship's passive scanners had picked up a shadow. 2 small contacts trailing them at extreme range. Elias flicked the sensor display to active for a second, just enough to confirm the readings. "We've got company." "Syndicate?" he asked. Lyra checked the readings and frowned. "Not hunters. These signatures are too irregular for their ships. More likely scavengers or mercenaries." "Sent by them?" Elias pressed. "They won't need to say it out loud," Lyra replied. "When the Syndicate wants deniability, they hire people like this. If they can't bring me back clean, they'll drag me back broken." Elias rose from the co-pilot seat and opened the weapons locker. He pulled out 2 compact sidearms, tossing one to her. "Then we make sure they don't drag anyone." They stayed on course for another 20 minutes before the contacts closed the gap. Through the aft camera feed, Elias saw them. 2 angular, scarred ships, painted in mismatched colors, the kind used by raiders who live between laws. Each ship carried a pair of grappling harpoons mounted forward, the kind designed to disable engines and pull a ship in close for boarding. "They're not firing yet," Elias said. "They want us alive." "That's their first mistake," Lyra murmured. The raiders matched their speed, then began to close in from both sides. Elias moved to the dorsal turret controls. "If they're here to board, they'll aim for the rear airlock first. I'll make sure they regret it." Lyra kept her eyes forward, fingers gliding over the navigation console. She didn't change speed. She didn't even glance at the raiders on the side screens. Instead, she shifted their trajectory by a fraction, angling toward a patch of space littered with the dark, drifting hulks of ancient cargo haulers. Elias recognized the place immediately, an old scrap field, unmapped, left over from some forgotten trade war. "You're taking us into debris?" he asked. "They'll expect us to run to open space," she said. "Debris is harder. It's also where I learned to fly." The first raider ship fired a harpoon. The heavy cable screamed through space, wrapping around their aft stabilizer. The ship jerked as the line pulled taut. Elias swore, locking the dorsal turret and swinging it toward the line source. He squeezed the trigger, sending a burst of plasma that severed the cable in a single shot. The raider's momentum spun it sideways, scraping against a floating cargo hull. Sparks bloomed in the darkness. The second raider came in fast from the starboard side, trying to block their entry into the debris field. Lyra didn't hesitate. She rolled the ship into a tight spin, dropping under the raider's path, and slid between 2 drifting haulers so close that their hulls scraped the paint from the wingtips. The raider tried to follow, but clipped a protruding beam and lost speed. Elias grinned despite the danger. "You weren't lying about learning here." Lyra's voice stayed calm. "Keep the turret ready. These fields have blind corners." They wove deeper into a graveyard of ships, the light from the pale sun breaking into shards as it passed through shattered hulls and broken solar arrays. Elias caught glimpses of old battle scars, burned holes, collapsed cargo bays, frozen bodies still drifting in the dark. The raiders pursued, but the narrow passages forced them to slow. Then the data core's pulse quickened. Elias glanced at it. "Your map's getting excited." "We're close," Lyra said, steering them toward what looked like the crushed remains of a freighter. But as they drew nearer, Elias saw it wasn't debris at all. It was a hidden docking platform, built into the shadow of the wreck, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. A single beacon light blinked slowly, matching the core's rhythm. "That's it," Elias asked. "That's it," Lyra confirmed. The raiders must have spotted it too, because they accelerated, harpoons primed again. Elias took the shot first this time, sending a bolt into the lead raider's cockpit shield. It flared white, forcing them to veer off. The second raider fired a harpoon, but Lyra twisted the ship at the last second, letting it bury into the side of an old hauler instead. The cable yanked the raider into the wreck. Ripping open its port wing, Lyra guided them into the narrow dock. The moment they crossed the threshold, heavy blast doors closed behind them, sealing out the debris field. The sudden quiet made Elias realize how fast his heart was pounding. The ship settled onto the platform with a hiss of cooling metal. The man's steps echoed on the metal deck as he came closer, the dim light catching the faint scarring along his mechanical arm. Lyra's grip on her rifle didn't loosen, but Elias noticed the way her breathing had changed, measured, steady, like she was holding something deep inside. "I'm called Rain now," the man said. "Names before that don't matter. Not anymore." "They told me you died on Varela Station," Lyra said, her voice flat. "They said you stayed behind so the rest of us could escape." Rain's smile was thin. "I did stay behind. I just didn't die. The syndicate pulled me from the rubble, same as they took you. But they didn't put me in white. I was too loud." Elias crossed his arms. "And what exactly do you want with her now?" Rain's gaze shifted to him. "You're the captain she promised to return to, the one who waited." "Good. Then you'll understand why we can't waste time. That core you're carrying," he nodded toward the cradle, "isn't just a weapon or a map. It's a key to a vault. Inside that vault is something the Syndicate has been trying to find for 20 years. A device built before our time. It can shut down every jump gate in the outer rings." Elias frowned. "Shut them down? That would cut off trade, travel, whole worlds." Rain's voice hardened. "It would also cut off the Syndicate's reach. Without the gates, they can't move fleets. They can't send hunters. They'd be trapped in their own territory." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "And you think I'm going to help you lock the galaxy's doors?" "You're the only one who can," Rain said. "The vault is sealed with a recognition pattern keyed to you. Your voice, your pulse, your neural imprint. The Syndicate bred you for this." The words hit like a slap. Elias saw in the way her hands tightened, the faint tremor in her jaw. "Bred," she repeated. "They didn't just find you," Rain said. "They made you, selected every detail from the start. Your genetics, your instincts, even your silver hair. All so one day you could open that vault for them. They've been shaping you for it your entire life." Lyra stepped back, as if the deck had shifted under her feet. "That's not possible." "It's the truth," Rain said. "You've felt it, haven't you? The way they always knew where to put you, what to make you say, who to make you trust." Elias spoke before she could answer. "If what you're saying is true, then why are you still alive? Why haven't they sent someone to finish you?" "They did," Rain said simply. "I just killed them first." He gestured toward the inner doors. "We can talk more inside. But we're running out of time. Your raider friends won't give up easily. And once they report back, the Syndicate will be here." Lyra hesitated, looking to Elias. He gave a short nod. "Let's hear him out. But the second I think he's twisting this, we walk." Rain led them through a series of narrow corridors into the heart of the hidden platform. The walls were lined with old consoles and glowing maps. A dozen people moved between stations, some human, some alien, all wearing a patch shaped like a broken ring. Elias recognized it from old resistance rumors. The shattered path. "This is my crew," Rain said. "We've been preparing for years. Waiting for the core to surface again. Waiting for you, Lyra." One of the crew, a tall alien with deep green skin and golden eyes, stepped forward. "The Syndicate's network is moving," she said. 3 long-range hunters just jumped to this sector." "See," Rain said. "No time for slow decisions." He turned back to Lyra. "The vault is in the core axis. You open it, we trigger the shutdown, and the galaxy gets one breath of freedom." Lyra's voice was quiet but sharp. "And then what? Billions trapped in their systems? World without supplies? You think that's freedom?" "It's a chance," Rain said. "A war is coming whether we shut the gates or not. At least this way, they fight with fewer weapons." Lyra's eyes stayed on the stars. Then maybe it's time their plan ended where it started. The data core pulsed once, brighter than before, as if it had heard her. The ship slid out a jump, and the view before them was nothing like Elias expected. The core axis wasn't just a point in space. It was a colossal web of shattered stations, derelict gates, and drifting asteroids, all bound together by old gravitational tethers. The remains of 1,000 different worlds floated here, locked in a slow, endless orbit around a dim red star. Lyra guided the ship between jagged pieces of metal the size of buildings. Some still bore faded markings from empires long gone. Others were so corroded they looked more like rock than steel. In the far distance, hidden behind the thickest cluster of debris, Elias spotted a faint glow, a structure still alive. "That's it," Lyra said quietly. "The vault." It didn't look like a vault. It looked like a spire of black glass, rising out of a broken station. Light pulsed from its surface in slow waves, almost matching the heartbeat rhythm of the data core in her lap. The closer they got, the more the core's glow aligned with the spire's light, as if they were speaking in some language neither of them could hear. Elias leaned forward. "Sensors are picking up something. Off. The air around that spire isn't empty." He tapped the display, and faint outlines appeared, energy fields shaped like walls, twisting in strange patterns around the vault. It was a maze, invisible unless you scan for it. "They've hidden it behind a distortion grid," he said. "Anything that touches those walls will fry instantly." Lyra studied the shifting lines. They left a path, a single way in, and I'll bet the pattern changes every few minutes. "That's not protection," Elias said. "That's bait. They're expecting you." The comms crackled to life before she could answer. A voice, smooth, calm, and too familiar, filled the cockpit. "White Envoy 12, Director Mara said. You've come far. I'm pleased. Bring the core inside, and you will have the life you were promised." Lyra's fingers tightened on the controls. "You've been following me since the spaceport." "Of course," Mara replied. "We built the path you're on. Every step, every meeting, every ally, it was all arranged. Even Rain was allowed to live, so he could lead you here." Elias felt a cold weight in his chest. "You're lying. If you need to believe that captain, you may," Mara said smoothly. "But when you see the vault open, you will know the truth. She is not yours to keep." Lyra muted the channel and stared at the vault through the viewport. "She wants me to walk in. She thinks I'll obey because she made me." "She doesn't know you anymore," Elias said, "and she's about to find out." They moved into the outer edge of the distortion maze. The ship's sensors screamed warnings, their screens lighting with red as the invisible walls shifted around them. Lyra's hands moved with steady precision, guiding them through gaps no wider than a hallway. Behind them, new contacts appeared on the scanner. 3 Syndicate Hunter ships, sliding into the maze entrance. They weren't firing. Not yet. They didn't need to. "They're letting us do the hard work," Elias said. "They won't get the prize," Lyra replied. The maze tightened, forcing them into a corkscrew path. At one point, a wall of energy flared just meters from their wing, heat rippling across the hull. Elias could see the faint burn marks in the air like ghosts. "2 more turns," Lyra murmured. Then we're at the vault door. The path widened briefly, revealing the base of the black spire. The vault door wasn't a door at all. It was a circular panel of white light, glowing with the same pulse as the core. Lyra slowed the ship and turned to Elias. "Once I take the core out there, the maze will close. You won't be able to fly in after me." "Then I'm going with you," he said immediately. She shook her head. "If this goes wrong, someone needs to get away. Someone who knows what they were trying to do here." "Not happening," Elias said. "I didn't wait all these years just to watch you walk into something like this alone." She held his gaze for a long moment, then handed him a sidearm. "Then stay close." They descended to the vault platform. The moment their boots hit the black glass surface, the distortion maze behind them shimmered and shifted, sealing off the path. The panel of white light flared brighter as Lyra approached. The core in her hands began to hum softly, its glow matching the vault perfectly. She stopped just short of the panel, her reflection sharp in the smooth surface. "Place the core," Mara's voice said, this time coming from everywhere at once. as if the vault itself spoke. Lyra didn't move. "If I open this, what happens?" "You fulfill your purpose," Mara replied, "and the galaxy will be remade." "That's not an answer," Elias said. "It is the only one you will receive," Mara said. Lyra turned the core slowly in her hands. For a moment, Elias thought she would throw it into the void, but then she knelt and placed it in the center of the panel. Light exploded outward, racing up the spire, casting their shadows long across the platform. The hum deepened into a low, resonant vibration that made the deck tremble. From within the vault came a sound like a lock disengaging. The white light split into 3 arcs, peeling open to reveal a vast chamber beyond. Inside, Elias saw shapes, rows of tower machines, silent and waiting. "This is it," Mara's voice said, almost warm now. "Step inside, Lyra. It will only accept you." Lyra looked at Elias. "You ready?" "Always," he said. They stepped into the vault. The air inside was cool, almost still. The walls shimmered faintly, as if alive. The machines were sleek and angular, each marked with the same broken ring symbol Elias had seen on Rain's crew. Only here, the symbol was whole. At the far end of the chamber, a single console waited. Above it floated a hologram of the galaxy, glowing in soft blue. Lyra approached, her step slow. When she touched the console, the hologram shifted, and every jump gate in the outer rings lit in red. A small line of text appeared in a language Elias didn't know. Lyra read it anyway, her voice quiet. "Confirm shutdown sequence." "That's the choice," Elias said. "Rain wants you to confirm. Mara wants you to confirm. But what do you want?" Lyra's fingers hovered over controls. Her jaw was set, her eyes locked on the red gates. "I want them to stop using me." The lights in the vault flickered. From the shadows behind the machines, figures began to appear, syndicate hunters, stepping silently into the chamber. And in their center, walking with the same calm she always had, was Director Mara. "Choose, Lyra," Mara said, "before they choose for you." The vault's air felt heavier now, as if the walls themselves were waiting for her decision. Lyra stood at the console, the galaxy's hologram spinning slowly before her, every jump gate in the outer rings glowing red. Elias stayed a step behind, eyes shifting between her and the syndicate hunters fanning out in the shadows. Director Mara stopped just inside the chamber, her black uniform sharp against the pale light. She didn't draw a weapon. She didn't need to. Her presence alone felt like a weight pressing on the room. "You were made for this," Mara said softly. "Every day of your life has led to this choice. Shut down the gates, and you'll save the syndicate from chaos. Or refuse, and you'll doom countless worlds." Rain's voice came over Lyra's comm, rough, urgent. "She's lying. Shut them down, and you cut their legs out from under them. That's the only way to end their grip." Lyra didn't move. "Funny," she said, eyes still on the map. "You both want me to press the same button. Only the story changes." Mara stepped closer. The hunters matched her movement, their visors glowing faintly red. "Because the truth doesn't change," she said. "The galaxy needs order, and only the syndicate can hold it. That vault is not a weapon. It's a stabilizer. Without it, everything collapses." Elias's voice cut through the tension. "You mean without it you collapse?" Mara's eyes flicked to him. "You're still here, because she let you be. Don't confuse that with importance, Captain." Lyra turned slightly toward him, her expression unreadable. "What do you think, Elias? If I shut the gates, millions could be stranded. If I don't, the syndicate keeps control. Which is the better prison?" He met her gaze steadily. "The better prison is the one that no longer exists. But maybe the choice isn't just yes or no." Something shifted in her eyes. She looked back at the console, fingers moving over the glowing symbols. The holographic map zoomed in, showing hidden pathways between systems, routes not on any syndicate chart. "What are you doing?" Mara asked sharply. Lyra's voice was calm. "If they bred me for this, then they gave me something they didn't mean to: control. The gates don't have to be destroyed. They can be changed, rewritten." The map's red glow began to fade in sections, replaced by soft white lines leading to only certain systems. The pattern was surgical, cutting syndicate control routes, leaving civilian lifelines untouched. Mara stepped forward, raising a hand. "Stop this. You don't know the damage." "Correction," Lyra said, her tone steel. "You don't know the damage you can't cause now." The hunters moved as one, weapons rising. Elias was faster. His sidearm barked twice, dropping the first two before he could fire. Rain's voice crackled over the comm again. "We're inside the maze. 10 seconds from you." The chamber erupted in chaos. Mara's comm cracked for the first time as she barked orders in a language Elias didn't know. Bolts of energy lit the vault's dark corners as hunters tried to force them from the console. Elias moved to shield Lyra, firing in short, precise bursts. The data core in the console pulsed violently, sending waves of light racing along the walls. The machines inside the vault shuddered, their surfaces rippling as if waking from a long sleep. Mara fought her way closer, drawing a sleek blade from her belt. "You belong to me, Lyra," she hissed. Lyra didn't look up from the console. "You mistook a promise for ownership." Her fingers danced over controls one last time. The vault roared to life. The holographic galaxy blazed with light, and every jump gate on the map shifted color. Syndicate routes burned away, leaving only a web of free paths between independent systems. A deep tone rang through the chamber, and Elias felt the air pressure change. Far beyond the vault, engines older than the Syndicate itself were rewriting the rules of travel. Mara lunged. Elias moved to block her, their weapons clashing in a brief, brutal exchange. She was fast, but he was desperate, and desperation won. He slammed her against the vault wall, disarming her in one sharp motion. Rain burst into the chamber with a squad of shattered pathfighters. "We got hunters in retreat," he said, then froze as he saw the map. "You didn't shut them down." "No," Lyra said, stepping back from the console. "I broke their monopoly. Now everyone moves on their own terms." Rain's expression was unreadable, but Elias saw the calculation in his eyes. "You may have just started a war." Lyra walked past him toward the exit. "Then let it be one no one can control." Mara struggled against Elias's grip, her voice low and venomous. "You think you've won. The Syndicate doesn't die. We adapt, and we never forget." Lyra stopped at the vault doorway and looked back. "Neither do I." They left her there, bound to the wall for Rain's crew to deal with. Outside, the distortion maze was collapsing, its walls folding in on themselves. Lyra and Elias ran for their ship, the path opening just long enough for them to slip through. Once aboard, Lyra set a course for deep space. The data core, now dim, rested quietly in its cradle, its purpose fulfilled. Elias leaned back in his seat, letting the tension finally bleed from his shoulders. "You changed everything," he said. She glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. "Not everything. Some things stay the same." "Like what?" he asked. Her eyes softened. "Like keeping promises." Elias looked at her for a long moment, then out at the stars ahead. They were different now. Paths reshaped, futures uncertain, but they were free. And for the first time in years, the weight of waiting was gone. Somewhere far behind them, the Syndicate was already rebuilding, already plotting. But for now, they were out of reach. And in the quiet hum of the ship, he knew they had more than just survival. They had each other.